Silksong is finally here. After 7 long years of hype, theories, and delays, it's actually real. And it's everything we hoped for. Beautiful world, fast and fluid combat, and just a great second addition to Hollow Knight. But I have some bad news. You're probably not going to finish it. Did you know that only 22% of people on Steam have actually completed Hollow Knight? Thousands of reviewers saying that it's overrated, or it just takes a lot of patience, or that the Metroidvania genre just isn't for them. And Silksong will be more of the same, and maybe even harder. So I'm not saying you won't finish it because it's bad. I'm saying you won't finish it because you're underestimating it. And I got the data to prove that. So let's get into it. So before we even get into Silksong, let's look into why people aren't finishing Hollow Knight in the first place. I've seen a couple different creators speak on how they never played Hollow Knight, or how they tried it and it just didn't speak to them, myself included. I've tried Hollow Knight maybe 2 or 3 times, but once you stop playing and then you come back to a Metroidvania, you kind of get completely lost on where to go once you start back up again. So let's talk about how many people have finished Hollow Knight. Better yet, let's talk about how many people didn't finish Hollow Knight. So according to howlongtobeat.com, it takes the average player around 26 hours just to complete the main story, not counting any DLCs or optional bosses. But when I pulled 100,000 reviews from Steam and compared their play times to How Long to Beat's main story average, only about 46% of people completed the game. So the majority of players never hit the 26-hour mark, not even close. In fact, out of the people who did not complete it, almost half of them didn't even get a quarter of the way through. And remember, these also aren't just random players. These are people who like the game enough to leave a review. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but that was crazy to me. My mind was blown after I saw that. Now maybe you're thinking, okay, maybe they quit early because they didn't like it. I need you to hold on to that thought, and we'll talk about it later. But first, let's break down why exactly people started dropping off in the first place. Alright, so let's talk about progression. When people say Hollow Knight is massive, they're not exaggerating. Not only is it true, it's disorienting. Like many Metroidvanias, Hollow Knight gives you freedom and no direction in the slightest. You unlock new paths in every direction, and the game rarely tells you where to go next. Sometimes you go so far in one direction just to see a locked gate, and then you have to take that long trek back. Other times you die to an easy enemy or fall into some spikes, and then you have to find your way back to the location again just to recover your shade, or you lose out on all your geo. Hopefully a bench is nearby. But for some, that's the charm of the game and the genre, and for others, it's their biggest frustration. To get a better picture of this, I pulled Hollow Knight's Steam achievements and built the progressions funnel. This shows how many players made it past each major milestone and how quickly the player count drops off. So at the very top of the funnel, you have the Charmed achievement, which is where you just received your first charm. This happens very early on in the game, I would say like in half hour max, and about 75% of the people get that achievement. So that still means about 1 in every 4 people drop off before they even get their first charm. That's wild to me. Then right after that is the Falsehood achievement, where you beat the False Knight, the first boss, and about 70% of people complete that. Nice start. Also, the first encounter of the Hornet is the Test the Resolve achievement. Only 61% of people achieve this, and that's the Hornet, the main character of Silksong, the one that you would be playing. Yeah, most people don't reach that boss. So there are still 40% of people who are probably still going to get Silksong who have not even reached this achievement. And then as you continue through the game and go down the funnel, once you reach the end, you see that only about 22% have gotten the Hollow Knight achievement, which is where you defeat the Hollow Knight and complete the game. So a little over 1 out of 5 people get this far. Now I want to say this is not the Steel Heart achievement or the Completion achievement or the Metamorphosis achievement. This achievement is just to beat the base game. So when you look at all the data and then see the big hype for Silksong and how Silksong is built on the same world, premise, and lore of Hollow Knight, you start to realize that if most people never finish the game, how many are really ready for the sequel? Okay, so you remember when I told you to hold on to that thought earlier in the video? Now maybe you're thinking, okay, maybe they quit early because they didn't like it. I need you to hold on to that thought. Let's circle back to that right now. So yeah, I know Hollow Knight isn't for everyone. No game is for everyone. But here's the interesting part. Even among the people who didn't finish Hollow Knight, a large portion of them still left positive reviews. So again, when I pulled 100,000 reviews from Steam, I also created another chart and grouped them into how far they got into the game. Same as the last chart. But this time I color coded it by who left a positive review and who left a negative review. And these results really surprised me. Out of all the players who barely got through the opening hours of the game, I'm talking about under 25% completion, nearly 9 out of 10 still left a positive review. Even in the 25 to 49% range, less than halfway through the game, the positivity rate increases. The only dip is between 50 and 74% completion, where negative reviews rise to 30%. I'll just assume that this is where there's a huge difficulty spike or a player hit a wall and stopped playing. But then after that, the reviews flip back to nearly 100% positive through players who got close to and actually finished the game. So what does that tell us? Well, people love Hollow Knight's art, music, and all-around atmosphere, even though they don't stick with the game through its entirety. Someone literally said, "I'm in love with this game. I bought both Silksong and this one. I haven't even played more than 1.6 hours and I love it." And that's really where the important lies, because positive reviews don't necessarily mean the player finished it, but it does mean the experience they had did stick with them, and I think every developer is chasing that feeling. So with Silksong finally being out, it's worth asking, if most players couldn't finish the last game and yet still praised it, what is going to happen with Silksong when it's even more ambitious? So now we've looked through Hollow Knight on its own, but as some of you might have guessed, this isn't uniquely a problem to Hollow Knight. I compared Hollow Knight's retire and backlog rate to a bunch of other games, some popular titles, some other Metroidvanias, and it turns out we drop games a lot more than we think. Hollow Knight still sits pretty high with a 58% of people not finishing it, but it's not alone. Games like The Witcher 3, Elden Ring, Red Dead 2, Cyberpunk all have a huge percentage of people who start them and never finish. And honestly, that's no one's fault. Life happens, you have class or work, or busy doing another hobby, or just aren't in the mood and the game falls to the wayside. But it makes sense, right? These games are huge and some of them are difficult. All falling between 20 to 40 hours, that's a lot of time you have to dedicate to these games, especially if you have a bigger backlog like me. So if you don't finish, don't worry. A lot of other people don't finish either. That's kind of the whole point. And that's why comparison is important. Yeah, Hollow Knight might have a higher drop-off rate than most, but it's part of a much larger pattern. We're living in a time where games are bigger than ever, we have more options than ever, and our attention spans are, well, not great. So it's not that Hollow Knight failed players, it's just that a lot of us don't finish games anymore, period. Even the ones we enjoy. And Silksong is about to confirm that theory all over again, I'm sure. So now that Silksong is finally here, some of us have been ready to jump back in. I mean, 7 years is a long time, and others are still pretending like we never left Hollow Knight in our backlog. And honestly, that's fine with me, because what we've seen in all the data and all the reviews, achievements, and drop-off points tell the same story. You don't have to finish a game to appreciate it. Like I said earlier, I tried to finish Hollow Knight 3 times and never could. Maybe one day I'll go back, maybe one day I won't. But for now, I'm diving into Silksong with the rest of you, even though I probably know how it's going to end. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and comment down a game that you love and never finished. And if the game is Hollow Knight, let me know how far you got before you backlogged it. The link to the dashboard is in the description below if you want to dive deeper in the data. I appreciate you for watching, and I'll see you later.